Welcome. I am Fred Wellman, host of Online with Vote Vets. Welcome to the show. Great to see you guys every week. Got all the usual showing up. Appreciate seeing you guys. Everybody kind of piling in here. It has been it's always been a crazy week. Every time we see you guys here every Friday, it's been a crazy week behind us. Yet here we are, still fighting the fight, getting the good fight. As we get started on this, I kind of have some big news as people are grabbing. We'll repeat it at the end, I guess, JJ, too. But we are really excited. If you didn't see it yesterday, Vote Vets, we just announced that we have got a town hall with Pete Buttigieg in downtown Cedar Rapids, Iowa, coming up on Tuesday evening, May 13th. Couple of thousand folks are signing up already. So we got a big ass venue for all the people who want to show up. It's a Vote Vets partnership with Pete and his folks, and we're really excited about that. It's a great opportunity for folks who want to come see Pete, talk about veterans and military, national security issues exclusively for this town hall. Pete Buttigieg has been kind enough to join us on this. So again, we are so excited to announce the partnership. On Tuesday, May 13th in Cedar Rapids. I'll be there, and for those who are fans of the show and what we do, we'll be reporting live. I'll be manning the streeting it there with a microphone, talking to folks who are lined up, talking to veterans in the audience to see what they think of things that we're getting into just past 100 days of the Trump administration 2.0. And we want to talk to you about that this week. We've got a great lineup of our friends who are here as always, who are joining us, who talk about these things and the experts in the past. We are very blessed with those. Before we get to that, let's go ahead and kind of talk about this week of chaos and the news that's come out and get right on it. So the big news, if you woke up to this like I did, Trump has decided he wants to change the name of Veterans Day. This is the post he put on his Truth Social channel last night. Many of our allies and friends say celebrating May 8th as Victory Day, but we did more than any other country by far, producing a victorious result in World War II. Not to go early on the fact checking, 27 million Soviet Russians died. 27 million of them died, it's estimated, in World War II. But anyway, going on. I'm hereby renaming May 8th as Victory Day for World War II and November 11th, Veterans Day, as Victory Day for World War I. We won both wars. Nobody was close to us in terms of strength, bravery, military. Anyway, so what he's saying here is he wants to take away Veterans Day and turning it into basically World War IX. Now, if you know the history of Veterans Day is Armistice Day of World War I. The war ended on the 11th hour, on the 11th day, at the 11th minute. 11/11/11 on 11 November, and that's what he did. We need that date. That is since World War II and after Korea, it was changed to Veterans Day to honor all veterans who had served since World War I and the entire history of our country. That is the day when we honor those who have served their countries, like us here at Vote Vets and others. And he wants to rename it. Which is kind of nuts, but here we are. I'm not sure if this would be policy or not. Could be just yet another distraction, but it is upsetting when you talk about how hard veterans have worked to get their status and recognition. And let's face it, all the World War I veterans are dead. So yet another policy shift from Trump in the middle of the night. The next story, which, again, this is even crazier. AP got hold of the warning orders, apparently the early orders for the big military parade that Trump wants to have, ostensibly for the Army's 250th birthday, but actually for his 79th birthday in Washington, D.C. If you remember from the first term, Trump wanted to have a military parade after going to France. Actually, that's the picture on that story that JJ's showing you right now. That's him in France for, I believe, Bastille Day, instead of being here for July 4th. And he was so impressed, but they had tanks and stuff coming down the road. Of course, if you remember, Paris actually has roads that can take tanks compared to ours in Washington, D.C., but nonetheless, that's what he has. The detailed Army plans for this parade are talking about more than 6,000 soldiers, 6,600 soldiers, at least 150 vehicles, 50 helicopters, 7 bands, possibly a couple of thousand civilians. The civilians would be doing things like dressing up in period clothes and showing off historic equipment. It's yikes, I'm telling you. So some equipment trips are already going to be included in the Army's birthday celebration, which has been in the works for like a year or so. And the festival is going to be on the National Mall. What the Army is going to do is do sort of a big festival on the National Mall with the sampling of equipment and troops there to kind of talk about it. However, a parade completely changes the dynamic of this whole thing. That brings in an extra 6,300 service members marching in a parade, while the remainder will be responsible for other tasks and supports. The Army's plan is kind of nuts. You're talking thousands of millions of dollars. This is what you're talking about. Now, the plans right now say the parade would showcase the Army's 250 years of service and bring at least, oh my God, soldiers from at least 11 corps and divisions nationwide. This would include a Stryker battalion with 2 companies of Stryker vehicles, a tank battalion, 2 companies of tanks, an infantry battalion with Bradley fighting vehicles, Paladin artillery vehicles, howitzers, and infantry vehicles. 7 Army bands, a parachute jump by the Golden Knights. I mean, it would be classified as a national special security event. It's a lot. Evening parade. Let's see. Oh, don't forget, we're going to have fireworks in the concert. It's basically, yeah, he wants a victory day, just like our friends, the Russians, do. And that's what he's talking about in this. What, of course, the layers to this thing, the layers to this thing are bizarre because it ties into the first story, right? The layers of this is he wants to name May 8th Victory Day, okay, in Europe. The war didn't end for us on May 8th. It ended for us when Japan surrendered, but let's not get the details. We aren't built for military parades. Historically, Americans have avoided these kind of military parades because we don't need to show our strength like that. But it looks like it's happening, and it's going to cost millions and millions of dollars. There were very significant concerns regarding security requirements and who will participate. But that's the early reporting. Again, that's going to be on June 14th, I believe, which just happens to be Trump's 79th birthday, as well as the Army's 250th birthday. I think the Army's aged better. But that's me. Next story is actually our friends at Iraq, Afghanistan, Veterans of America. Our friends over there. They conducted a survey of what's being called young veterans. Now, I don't want to. Don't get me wrong. I am very young at heart, but I'm not necessarily young per se. But I am I'm an Iraq veteran, 3 Iraq tours plus everywhere else. This is a tour. This is a survey they did of Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria veterans. 1,400 veterans were surveyed in this report that IAVA issued this week. Majority of whom served in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria during their time in the ranks. More than half described themselves as politically independent, but overwhelmingly, and this is done by Columbia University's Center for Veteran Transition and Integration. So it's a really good, reasonable survey. Shockingly, the negative response in the survey cut across political lines. 86% of the veterans polled said that when individuals involved in the leak of sensitive military airstrike data should be held accountable for those mistakes. That's the signal group that I'm sure we're going to talk about with our guest. That included 76% of veterans who identified themselves as Republicans in this survey said that those who launched Signalgate should pay a price. Now, Mike Waltz is getting promoted as of yesterday. So I guess there is some modicum of change, but that nonetheless. The latest survey also found that 81% of veterans are concerned that plans for federal cuts to government services could impact veterans' benefits and healthcare, despite promises from VA that would not happen. Another 42% of the veterans in the survey said they're less likely to recommend military service to a friend or family member than they were a year ago. And now almost half, 48%, say they would discourage potential recruits from joining. I want to think about that last part for a second. If you understand the military, for those who aren't veterans, like those of us joining, by the way, we love having you here. For those who aren't veterans and just supporters, it's great. But if you understand the modern volunteer military, it's very much a family business. How do I know? It was my family business. My dad was a veteran. Actually, my family goes all the way back. But my dad, my direct family, was a veteran of World War II. My uncle was lost in Korea. He was killed in Korea during the Chinese offensive in 1951. We served. My uncles all served. Okay, we all served. And then I served. I went 22 years in the Army, and my son has served in the 82nd Airborne. It's very much a family business, the volunteer military. So the idea that 42% of veterans in the survey and 40 said they would not recommend to a family member, okay, to join the military, that's really big. And that says a lot about the future of the military. And something we've been saying quite a bit. This has nothing to do with wokeness, obviously, because this is taken this month. It has to do with the fact that service in the military now is very much politicized and changed. So even people who are Republicans in the survey are saying, I can't recommend service. That is probably one of the scariest things that come out of that survey. Hopefully it shouldn't surprise us that veterans are disgusted by the signal actions and the disgust they have for how our secrets were treated by somebody supposedly in charge. But to say also they don't want people to serve, that's long-term implications. Because again, we've said it here on the show several times, I'm sure you've heard, we recruit individuals at 18, 17, 18, 19, but they won't be generals for 30 or 40 years. So all these very talented people who don't join the military now, it's going to hurt us for a generation. So that story, that survey is fascinating. We're glad our friends at IAVA put it out. And then get on the show, the theme of the show too, and it all does tie into where we're going with this. It was the 100 days of Trump's administration. based on either Tuesday or Wednesday, depending who does the math. I'm not going to get into that. I don't do math, that's why I talk to you guys on camera. However, this week was 100 days, and thought it'd be a good time to kind of go through and talk about those issues. And a lot of folks have been talking this week. They had a town hall this week on MSNBC as well as other channels. I wanted to show this clip. This woman is a veteran who had cancer and served in the government and was fired. And it's an interesting story. It's about a 2-minute clip, and that'll lead very nicely into our next conversation. So let's watch this conversation.
Alyssa, let's hear from you. Thank you so much for being here, Alyssa. You were working at the Buffalo Veterans Affairs. Alyssa, let's hear from you. Thank you so much for being here, Alyssa. You were working at the Buffalo Veterans Affairs office in the education department, and I want everybody to know, not only are you a cancer survivor, potentially because you were exposed to burn pits in Afghanistan, but you went into the VA even though you probably could have made the same amount of money working, accepting disability payments. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so tell me, why did you decide to go into the federal service and go to the VA?
I decided to do it because I really care about veterans. I love to work. I didn't want to feel like I was stagnant and staying home. I wanted to give back to a system that has given me so much. Doctors at the VA treated my cancer, saved my life. Thank you, Dr. Ryan. But they were great for me, and I haven't had I've really benefited from these systems, and I wanted to be able to do something that was impactful, even if it was small, in order to give back to it.
Let me tell you something. You're doing something impactful right now, and you're also doing something very brave, because you were told you could have your job back, but if you spoke out to media, you couldn't. And here you are tonight, speaking out in front of all of us. I want to say all of you are very brave, but in particular, what you were faced with. Why did you decide to come and speak out tonight instead of take your job back?
I feel like this is a critical time in our country. I love America. I love being from this country. I've traveled the world. There is no greater system than what we have here. And I feel like it's just so very important to talk about not just myself, but my coworkers who work so hard to provide benefits, even when it's inconvenient, even when federal systems break. We work overtime. We exceed our production numbers on a regular basis. And to characterize us as terrible people or people who are lining their pocket with federal dollars is a lie.
You were producing.
How does that make you feel when you hear that?
It makes me really angry. I feel terrible because, I'm in a really unique position where I don't really need this job, but there are a lot of people who I work with who this is the money that they pay their mortgage with. This is the money that puts their children into sports. They're afraid to talk. They're afraid to talk because they really want their jobs back. This is their primary source of income. These people work really hard. The idea that we don't have any accountability for our job is a lie. We have to provide production numbers that we can't fake. They're looking at our computers for every single thing that we do during the day. And it's wrong to talk about employees who are working really hard for you and doing their best to provide these services in that way.
There you go. And we're all together. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guests this week. You've seen them before. If you follow the show, it's great to have them back. Of course, Kayla Williams, former Assistant Secretary of the Veterans Affairs for Public and Intergovernmental Affairs, a very big title, or long title, if nothing else. Also, most importantly, an Army veteran and Senior Advisor to Vote Vets. Caroline Zier is joining us, former, Deputy Chief of Staff in the Secretary of Defense's office. Also a returning guest and a senior veteran of Vote Vets. Ladies, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you again.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're all talking too. Technology's working this time. Hopefully JJ stays back there in his little cubicle. Doesn't take us up. I was just saying I wasn't glad I was picking my nose during that video. But look, it's great. Look, it's just been a crazy, before we start going to individual departments, obviously Kayla can talk about the VA, Caroline can talk about DOD. But just in general, I'd love to get your first take as you kind of sit back with 2-3 days under the belt now. Kayla, is there something in your world in the Department of Veterans Affairs and supporting our veterans that has shocked you more than anything else in the last 100 days?
Just the speed at which things have devolved into chaos and the really low morale that I've seen from friends and former colleagues who are still at the department. It's been astonishing to see how quickly it's happened.
Yeah, it really has been a shock at all, and not in a good way. What about you, Caroline?
I'd pick up those themes that Kayla has identified. It's been 100 days of chaos, dysfunction, lack of process, and a lot of own goals. I mean, we've seen a series of unforced errors. No one created those signal group text chats except for the people who were in them. No one knew about them until they put a reporter into one, and there was a leak, presumably from someone who was in the group and knew about the second one, and no one put operational details into those signal chats in such a way that put at risk men and women conducting dangerous operations, except for those people. That's why I call it own goals by this administration and under Secretary Hagstad's leadership or lack of leadership.
Yeah. And what are you hearing, Caroline, inside the building as far as morale? And I mean, I'm starting to hear some really fascinating rumors about, you saw the stickers of or clean out OPSEC at the Pentagon station. I've had friends tell me they've been in the building and everybody calls him Signal Pete. He doesn't, he's, when you're the butt of the jokes in the Pentagon, it's never good. I mean, are you hearing those kind of rumors too of frustration and morale impact?
Yeah, it definitely impacts morale when you get an email asking you to say what the 5 things you accomplished last week were. The people receiving emails like that, these what did you do last week sorts of missives, those people work incredibly hard. Many of them could earn more outside of government service. A lot of DOD civilians, for example, are veterans because they want to continue to serve the same way we heard in that clip, that there are amazing people like Alyssa who want to continue serving, and they do that by coming in as a civilian after they take off the uniform. I will also say it's been startling and unsettling how politicized the military is becoming as a result of actions this administration is taking. We talked about that in detail, but the issue that comes to mind for me is purging apolitical general officers without cause. So there's no reason given for the series of dismissals for these general officers, and that draws the military into politics.
Yeah, and now we're hearing announcements they're going to start doing the big cuts, and the RIFs are coming now, and the cuts over at VA. Of course, Doug Collins announced early on they wanted to cut 83,000 employees without saying who they were. There's sort of a guessing game going on on top of the hire freeze at VA, isn't there, Kayla?
Yeah, and it's really frustrating and scary. And just to give a really personal example on that, I just started recently a new mental health treatment program through VA, and the provider, I asked on the first day of a group cohort, like, can you guarantee that you're going to be here through the entire course of treatment? And she's like, I can't promise you that. And I also have to tell you that I might be required to come into the office, work in a converted cubicle. I'll wear headphones so people will only be able to hear what I'm saying, not what you're saying. But if anybody knows what type of program she's doing at that hour and they walk behind and can see faces on the screen, some of us are known figures like that. There's no privacy there. And that's upsetting. And then it turns out she will be leaving earlier than expected. And so they're trying to, cram things in and make it happen faster. News came out, I think yesterday, the VA in Salt Lake City is no longer accepting inpatient mental health patients for admissions at this point. They are not saying why, but the hiring freeze kind of to some people may scream possible contributing factor on some level, even if the positions are exempted. I've had folks reach out to me saying, like, should I even apply at VA? I don't feel comfortable with this. Other folks saying that they're leaving because they are not allowed to even wear a pride pin. They are being told on for having a pride sticker up in their cubicle at the office. So there's the uncertainty, not knowing who may be RIFed, not knowing who may take Vera or take the DERP or whatever ridiculous acronym it is.
The retirement program. Yeah.
I like DERP. DERP. I'm not there, but I like it.
Folks that I know who made it through the first Trump administration, because they believe deeply in serving the American people, serving their fellow veterans. They are committed to public service, who this time around, they're saying, okay, well, let me buy back my military retirement service and see if I'm going to be eligible for retirement now, because the uncertainty is so difficult and so painful. And I just hate to think how challenging it is going to be to rebuild what gets destroyed.
That's their goal, and their goal is to move fast and do that. And you're seeing the same thing over DOD within the military ranks too, Colonel. I mean, the denigrating the service of women and minorities. I mean, the opening shot they took when they took over, right, was to have DEI, and to go as far as having all the public affairs personnel and the entire chain of command stripping their social media of posts about Jackie Robinson and others. It feels like it's pushing. I mean, the impact on women who serve, people of color who serve, that's going to be very real beyond just the cruelty of it all, isn't it?
I certainly think so. You've really hit the nail on the head, and I want to circle back for a second to something Kayla said, because I think it's really important, and really want to applaud you for sharing that personal story. It takes a leader to be able to come out and say you're seeking, or one is seeking, or people seeking mental health and care for mental health. And it is so incredibly important that veterans who have given their lives in service of this country and have been willing to die for this country get the services that they seek and that they need. That mental health component of treatment and services is just so important. And I think it speaks to this broader trend, Fred, that you've identified of denigrating service, both those still in uniform and those who came before. If you are one of the about under 20%, say 17 to 18% of women in uniform, active duty, and you see things like kicking off a review of the standards for the combat arms, it is normal to review standards. We are a professional military. We hold ourselves to high standards, but it is clearly, in the way Secretary Hegseth has spoken about it in his videos, about reviewing and moving the goal line into a place where women are not in the combat arms. Or, as you pointed out, Fred, a directive going out to remove any references to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and using things like AI-enabled tools, scrubbing websites, social media pages, and getting rid of references to the Tuskegee Airmen, the Enola Gay, women who were in combat in World War II. It's just an extraordinary level of disregard for the memory and contributions of women and minorities in service, as well as those who currently wear the cloth of our nation.
Yep. Yeah.
Can I jump in and share something else that I'm really frustrated
Please.
about?
I'm just here to hang out with you guys. You guys do your thing.
On the DOD side. So the last time I was at VA, I served as VA's representative on DOD's Independent Review Commission on Sexual Harassment and Assault.
Yep.
And one of the recommendations that we made that was in the process of being implemented was to roll out an entire workforce dedicated to preventing various harmful behaviors, sexual harassment, sexual assault, yes, but also suicide, hazing, bullying, and other behaviors that are harmful to individuals, but also to the force and to readiness and to unit cohesion and all of these things that are actually really important when you want to go out and accomplish the mission. It can be harder to show people the line, but the line between having a resilient force and lethality is very much there. So DOD announced earlier this week, they're canceling hiring of the prevention workforce. So they're going to stop hiring folks who are committed to preventing suicide, preventing sexual assault. And then in the early word this morning, there's a link to military sexual assault reports decreased 4% last year. So they've rolled out a program to prevent harmful behaviors. Maybe it was starting to work. We actually saw reports going down for the first time in a long time, but now they're going to stop hiring people to implement the program. So
yeah, that's a super point. That's a super point. And the prevention workforce and investments in a workforce, as Kayla just laid out, is pennies compared
Right.
to an $850 billion budget. You cannot tell me there is not a way to fund that prevention workforce. And 2 years in a row, we've finally seen the sexual assault trends going in the right direction, going down, but those numbers are still too high. And the reason they went down is because there was a lot of leadership top down at all echelons focus on getting after the scourge of sexual assault. Same with the suicide numbers. Those are probably a different conversation for us to have, and we should have it. But those programs are about taking care of service members, and you'd have to translate that into the veteran community. What I see is a lot of talking about lethality, investing in the war fighter, but the war fighter is also a human, and those humans have families, they have mental health, they have their physical health, and all of that is the total package that is part of what makes us the greatest fighting force.
Yeah, it's funny. I try to explain to my civilian friends how significant the Air Force decided to cut all of the morale days was. And people they looked at me like I was crazy because they didn't understand why that was a thing, that the idea of not adding an extra day to the 3-day holiday. And for those I talk in generalities, the Air Force has announced typically, traditionally in the military, as long as I served, and I served, I'm the old guy here, I got commissioned in 1987, okay? And back then it was a thing too. It's not DEI, okay? It was traditional that at units, you got off early you got off the Friday before 3-day weekends. You could have more time with your families. In Hawaii, Aloha Thursday. Everybody who served in Hawaii knows about Aloha Thursday, right? 3:00 on Thursday, we let our troops go home, an early day to be with their families. And why do we do that? We do that because we are asking these kids to work 24 hours a day a lot. We're asking them to deploy at the drop of a hat a lot. We ask them to go away for a month if you're in Hawaii, when you go to the Joint Readiness Training Center, it's a month away from home because you're on the other side of the planet from your family. So the payback is when we are in garrison, when we're not at war or otherwise, we let them have more time. And they already announced that wasn't lethal. And that adds up, right, guys? I mean, you're a military family member too, actually, Kayla. I mean, you're not just a veteran. You're a military family member. You know that you don't get to see your service member very often. So it's that chipping away that I feel like. Isn't that, Kayla? Is that accurate to say that it's like just to chip? But the service members are seeing it, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. I also do want to build really briefly on something Caroline said, though, to note that in addition to these programs being effective, the leadership example is so incredibly important.
Right.
And we are now in a position where the Secretary of Defense has been credibly accused of sexual assault, and the Commander-in-Chief has been convicted of sexual assault. And so how are you going to have a really convincing message in the Department of Defense that type of behavior won't be tolerated?
Yeah.
The two civilians in the chain of command.
Right.
The only two civilians in the chain of command.
Well, which gets to the topic you brought up in a separate conversation, Caroline, is this chaos. The chaos at the top of the DOD right now. We see Mike Waltz getting kicked out. Rumors are rampant that Hex had his next over just the rampant incompetence. I mean, he's gone through, what was it? I think, is it 5 of his advisors have been kicked out or quit or fired? Is that right?
Yeah, I believe that's the count. And just to emphasize, these are his own political advisors. That's not counting the military assistants, apolitical, they span administrations. 100 times a day, I would like to emphasize that the U.S. military is apolitical and swears an oath to the Constitution, and that is how it has been and must be. And therefore, firing apolitical military officers is fundamentally an un-American way to treat men and women in uniform. Yeah. What you're referencing are his own political appointees who had gotten him through the confirmation process, some of them. And some of them, once they were on the outside, started having conversations with reporters and the media and publishing their own views that the Pentagon is in disarray. So that's their own view from their own appointees of what's happening at the Pentagon. I think the larger consequential point here is that if you can't do the day-to-day business and operations of the Department of Defense smoothly, and not to say that's simple, it's a vast enterprise with unbelievable numbers of problems and responsibilities. So day-to-day isn't simple, but if you can't do day-to-day, you are not going to be able to handle a no-notice, short-notice crisis, which God forbid it happens, but it's the world and it's a big country, so problems arise all the time. And I sincerely hope they are able to establish some process and better guardrails.
Well, it's failing a stress test already, right? They kind of failed their first stress test, so setting out the Yemen strikes, which we know nothing about after 3 weeks, 4 weeks of it. We still don't know anything. They're not hardly telling us anything. We know we've lost some drones, but they failed that first stress test, the signal leak, and now losing all these personnel. I can't imagine what a real stress test would look like with this complete clown show. I mean, I'm not, it just. Sean Parnell, who, none of these people have served at the highest levels of the largest organizations in the world, and now we've got these clowns. And Collins is no different over at VA, Kayla. I mean, he's way over his head as well, it seems like.
Well, I'll note really quickly, two of the people at DOD who were part of this purge previously served at VA under Trump 1.
Right. Right.
But another element of this that I think is really important is that there are multiple senior level Trump appointees who are dual-headed or more. So Doug Collins is not only the VA secretary, but unless there's been an announcement that it's been changed, which I haven't seen, maybe it's flown under the radar, he was also put in charge of the Office of Special Counsel and also put in charge of the Office of Government Ethics. So that's 3 hats. Yeah. How many hats is Marco Rubio now wearing?
3.
Like, all of these are jobs that are important and should be.
And isn't the SEC Army now in charge of the ATF or something?
Yes.
I think.
I don't understand that.
I think so. Yeah.
How this is happening, and then to me, also bizarrely, we have Doug Collins, instead of focusing on ensuring that veterans are getting the care and benefits that they have earned through their honorable service, wasting his time on searching for imagined anti-Christian bias in some kind of weird witch hunt where folks have been asked to tell on their colleagues if they've done anything anti-Christian. And there's now one article out about the supposed impetus for this, which is that a chaplain went on some kind of homophobic rant and was censured for going on an anti-homosexual rant while doing his official duties. And that is apparently proof of anti-Christian bias that they're now going after. But also in the list of supposed forms of bias was references to things like vaccine mandates. So if you were enforcing the rule to not infect elderly, sick veterans with COVID, right? If you're ensuring healthcare providers in a healthcare setting were vaccinated, that may now be used against you. So I don't.
And as anti-Christian bias, that was the part of that memo that really got me the most. Is like, okay, so we're denying science in the name of religion, and now we've bled into one of the largest research organizations in the world. One we want to pull another string on for, I think, both sides actually, for DOD and VA, is the Harvard fight. I had a tip from a friend that they put out a memo to everybody in VA saying, hey, we want to know all of our contacts with Harvard because they're getting ready to, they want to try and punish Harvard. There's a lot of research going on at VA through Harvard, isn't there? I mean, like cancer, mental health, there's long-term programs going on, and they're going to get rid of those. And it's going to hurt veterans, right? All because of a political fight, isn't it?
I have not looked up how many joint research projects they do or do not have, but in general, the VA research program is under deep threat right now. They're not renewing contracts for individual researchers. These are at times folks who don't even draw a VA salary, canceling research projects midway through, reading about veterans who are no longer able to get cutting edge cancer treatments, mid course. When I think of anything showing an utter disregard for human life, this is it. Hearing from folks inside that there are fears that transplant clinics in VA may be forced to close because they're not able to get an adequate number of employees because folks don't want to accept job offers when they don't know what kind of environment they're going to be walking into. And, I'm a living kidney donor. I donated a kidney to a stranger. I happen to do that at Walter Reed, but like that's how deeply I am committed to trying to save lives. So to hear this utter callous disregard for human lives is just disgusting to me.
Yeah. And that goes to another place. Carolina, I mean, one of the first acts they did was they sent Marines and soldiers down to the southern border. Now they've sent, now they're sending that they created a national defense area along the New Mexico border. So now troops are patrolling that. Again, we have United States Army troops and others patrolling now armed with weapons for, it's not their mission, but to stop migrants and others coming across the border. How does that impact things?
From minutes after the Trump administration took office, they took a number of steps, and they've been quite deliberate and quite focused on this, that have, in effect, put the U.S. military further into law enforcement roles and law enforcement adjacent roles. Let me explain what I mean by that, because the headline is in some ways militarizing law enforcement or militarizing counter-border operations. As you referenced in the last few weeks, and this is all under the state of emergency that President Trump announced as it relates to border, which of course border crossings are at historic lows, so it's hard to quite understand how it's still a national emergency. But notwithstanding that point, there is a declaration of a national emergency. There has been a surge of troops. There are now about 12,000 troops at the border, including a Stryker, BCT, General Support Aviation Brigade. There are 2 DDGs on station, which is
Navy destroyers offshore,
which is extraordinary. At least one, possibly both of those destroyers had previously been in the Red Sea and in the Middle East. So it is an extraordinary use of destroyers. There's more ISR. There's just more military activity happening in and around the southwest border. Then in the last few weeks, there was a declaration that there would be a New Mexico National Defense Area, which is an expansion of Fort Huachaca, that area that the U.S. military can patrol and within which they can temporarily detain because it's defense area and lands. So an extension of that in a non-contiguous way into New Mexico and into California. What does this mean? This means that the U.S. military within that designated area can detain a migrant who has crossed over to hand off to law enforcement. That may not seem like a big deal, but it is the camel's nose under the tent. It could be a very big deal. It could become an even bigger deal. It's a play they have now run that they could expand upon in other areas. And I think we need to watch closely. I think members of Congress should ask a lot of questions about the direction of travel when they have senior leaders in front of them at any hearing or any testimony.
Yeah, my challenge is I served as an Army officer, and I love my soldiers, all right? But 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids with M4s, fully loaded at night, you're nervous. Things happen. I mean, I think for me, I get, what we've done is we've placed people who have no experience doing this job in what can be a very dangerous situation that could involve open fire and that could kill an American. That who knows? It is to me, I get very anxious. I think of those soldiers who have been placed in this situation that have no training for, no national, no, and by the way, has nothing to do with their real mission. It's concerning to me to no end, the idea that we'll defend it like it's military space.
Right.
And Kayla, another thing that just came out this week too, and there's been a little bit of a focus on it on the VA side, is the cancellation of the housing program, right? The VAST program where they were saving veterans' homes. I mean, I think there's 20,000, 30,000 veterans who are in a foreclosure program that the VA just canceled outright on May 2nd, didn't they?
I thought it was even more than that. I thought I had read 70.
Yeah,
it's
huge
a
number.
Program that they were using to try to prevent foreclosures. And one of the things that I found really frustrating, the members of Congress who are saying that this puts the government at too much risk, is that traditionally VA home loans have had one of the lowest rates of foreclosures.
Right.
And so, it's just give those folks a little more help, a little more time, and facilitate getting them in a position where they can keep their homes and have less long-term need on the government, right? If they become completely unhoused, they will need an even higher level of support. Another thing that I've been really disturbed by is on the House side, the House HVAC chairman asked the Attorney General to investigate former VA leaders.
Yes.
They did the best that they could to try to put forward an accurate budget submission, and now they're going to be investigated potentially. And at the same time, if you saw in the news, Chris Krebs has had his global entry canceled. And so I know as a former appointee, I'm worried what else may be next and how widespread might it be?
Right.
Like,
Caroline, you're in the same position.
Going to be canceled now? Are they going to do a scrub of like every single appointee and find subtle ways to mess with us? Like, how petty and vindictive are they going to get, and how wide of a net are they going to cast? You mentioned Harvard earlier with the president, posting on social media about wanting the IRS to investigate. So these are behaviors that certainly to me seem unlawful. I am not a lawyer, but it's just shocking and so petty and small.
Right. That's that, and these little petty fights and micro little revenge tours have nothing to do with the mission, right? They have nothing to do with leading our soldiers, leading our service members in combat, or in preparing for defense of the nation, or creating their taking care of their health care and everything else. And that seems to be the theme I see a lot on both sides of where we are talking about our national security apparatus and everything else. Nothing has to do with the national security apparatus. It's these petty fights and petty little things are going on. I guess I do have to go back and apologize. I didn't mean to smear enlisted people. Okay, I'm sorry. Kayla pointed it out. Okay, I'm just saying, having had troops, that maybe there's a very good chance a young soldier might trip and shoot. I see you, J.J. Jorgensen.
The negligent discharges that I was aware of in Iraq, the majority of them were lieutenants.
Okay, all right. That's fine. That's how it's going to go.
Okay, while we're
Carol, we don't need you to chew in here.
While we're cleaning up messes, I think as I was rattling assets and capabilities they have at the border, I think I said General Support Aviation Brigade. It's a battalion. Yeah. Sorry. But I just said it wrong.
It's all okay. It's fine. Battalion. Oh, you're correct. My God.
It's a lot. It's 12,000 troops. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Combat capability that could be elsewhere. There's an opportunity cost.
Yes.
And I actually think that's a larger point about if you're spending time being petty, vindictive, targeting, and making it more difficult for former appointees to operate, and really trying to discourage them to speak and to have conversations, as we're trying to do right now. I do wonder what they're not doing when so many of them are dual, triple-hatted. How are your days not adequately full, because there's a lot to do when you're doing these jobs?
Right. I mean, you're supposed to be running the largest department in the country, and all you do is run around going to. I mean, I've been laughing seeing DOD posting like, "Look, the high school tour came through." It's like the United States Department of Defense social media is posting about tours groups that came through. It's like, okay, there's not bigger things going on. I mean, I think we've got hundreds and possibly thousands of service members bombing a foreign country right now in Yemen, but we're not seeing pictures of that. It's remarkable to me how they've lost their way of communicating with the American people, both departments, right, Caroline? I mean, that was a big part of your job. You're reporting to the American people what we were doing with their sons and daughters, isn't it?
Yes, it is the responsibility of the Department of Defense and the press shop there, the press officers and the network around the globe to communicate what we were doing. Central Command, CENTCOM, has been posting updates, but it's more on the lines of video of F-18s flying off the carrier deck. It's less what's the battle damage assessment, what is happening, where is this going, how will it transition, and to come back to what we were just discussing about opportunity costs, what are we not able to do right now, for example, in the Indo-Pacific, which should be the priority and the main effort.
Yeah.
as a result of the extraordinary amount of resources being poured into countering the Houthis. And just to foot stomp, is it achieving our objectives, and how will we transition? It is very easy to start a campaign. It is much harder to transition, close, and exit stage left once you've started it.
Right. And we have not had any expressed goal end state, what that might be. We're going to knock the hell out of them, I think was one of the things I heard. It's hard to measure that in munitions and lives at what point. I mean, I guess that's, in many ways, I suppose we've been lucky. We haven't lost any service members to date. But I do worry that our time is, that our luck may run out, and it makes me very nervous.
I mean, I think we
I
did
know
lose
go ahead.
4 in Lithuania.
Yeah, Lithuania. I meant in the Yemen campaign. But yes, we did lose. We lost 4 army soldiers in Lithuania. Yeah,
And
which
I
they
don't
skipped.
recall seeing that
No,
covered effectively by the
no.
current leadership.
We covered it like crazy here. We
Yes.
did lives and stuff, and it's just incredible. They just, Trump didn't bother going to the, the return. I think somebody said that Hegseth did, but I didn't see any pictures of it. He's all about the
I only
video,
want to commend what the UCOM commander did as a commander would. When he testified before Congress, went to pains to describe what that loss meant, and how much the Lithuanians had gone to every trouble and had done everything they could in the search and rescue and recovery. So just a silver lining that the commander in theater and our ally were there with us. And then we did lose, I believe, 2 Marines at the southwest border, and a 3rd wounded.
Yeah, in the car accident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it is. These are happening, and that's the thing that both of the departments where you guys were with, and in previous lives too, they're life and death departments. That people, it's healthcare, it's combat, it's dangerous jobs, and training, and all of that's being undermined. I guess let's kind of wrap there. As like, so I don't know if there's any hopeful. What do you see next, Carol? I know on the Department of Defense side, the military side, do you have any hopes, or what do you think we're going to see in the next few weeks?
I hope.
I put you in space on that one.
Yeah,
I don't know. More chaos,
You're
Fred.
gonna
It's okay to
predict.
say that,
What I hope to see is an understanding of where things are going in Operation Rough Rider, which is what they've named their campaign against the Houthis, and some understanding for the troops and their families, what the timelines are. We've had a lot of capability surged into that theater to support the campaign, and those service members and their families should have a sense of the timelines and when they can expect their loved ones home, and when the actual assets can start to be recapitalized and rebuild some readiness for what else might come, and to be focused on other deterrence elsewhere. So I really do hope that. I hope for some clarity on what's happening at the southwest border as it relates to the U.S. military. And I discussed that, so I won't go at length. And I also hope for more silver linings as it relates to what the U.S. is doing to support Ukraine as it looks to a ceasefire, and how to transition that into some form of a long-term peace agreement. That's a much longer conversation. It's been a very fraught 100 days on that front, but there's been a lot of blood and treasure lost over 3 years. Ukrainian and Russia has suffered a lot of losses as well, Russian troops. So I hope for some transition and clarity coming out of the mineral deal as well.
Yeah.
Those are hopes, not predictions.
Those are some great hopes. I mean, I love that you still have optimism. It's just makes my heart.
Of course.
All right,
It's the
Kayla,
U.S.
same question to
military.
you.
I'll put all my faith in the U.S. military.
It's good to see you. Even after all of this, you can still hang in there. Kayla, same with the VA. I mean, there's really key milestones of VA now. Like we've got the return to work order going into effect right now. I've heard the RIF is going to hit in the next couple of weeks, right? So it's kind of a critical moment for the VA changes they're trying to implement, isn't it?
Absolutely, and we'll start to see what's happening. I went on to the VA website and I took screenshots of what the current wait times are at the local VA medical center. I would encourage other people to do the same, so that in a few months we can go back and check and see, are wait times getting longer? Are they miraculously getting shorter? I can't imagine that happening, but I would be willing to publicly issue a mea culpa if I'm wrong on that. But I want to see if wait times start to drift up. Monitor the decision-making process for disability claims as well. See if those start to take longer. See if accuracy rates start to suffer. We'll see. If anybody's been paying attention to the news, the Tri-West contract on the DOD side, that rollout has been really awful. Family members having a really, really hard time maintaining their health insurance and getting doctor's appointments. It, I think, shows once again the danger in expecting that leaning on the private sector is going to be effective. And I think there is this expectation that on the part of the current administration that they can chip away at VA and that the community is going to be able to step up and absorb, 7 million more patients. I don't think that's true. And my only hope, if I want to look for a bright side, my silver lining might be that enough people see what is happening quickly enough and raise the alarm to their members of Congress quickly enough that Congress actually steps up and does its constitutional duty and actually engages in oversight and actually insists that the Department of Veterans Affairs spend the funds that have been appropriated to it in the way that Congress has intended, which includes having a robust direct care system.
There you go. Well, I think that's a great point. I think that's exactly what we can. I think that's the purpose of this show and others, and what we do at VoteVets is to push that. So, hey, this is getting to a point. You can't. It's not unacceptable. We had to put our foot down, have you do your job. It's been frustrating to see what has always been a bipartisan and world, which is DOD and VA oversight, devolve into whatever this is now, where they're actually talking about investigating prior appointees. So, ladies, I appreciate your time on a Friday afternoon. I hope you can relax the rest of the day. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, the work you do is so important for VoteVets and for the country, and I just really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us.
All right, we'll see you later.
Good to be with you.
Well, it's I got to cheer everybody up now. Well, it's a lot, you guys. The national security apparatus for our country and the Veterans Security Network, safety network, if you will, is being attacked directly. Look, there's just no way to sugarcoat it. Okay, they're going to try and tell you they're reforming or they're streamlining or they're making more efficient. It's a lie. There's just no way around that. They are lying to us. They're lying to you. They're lying to their employees. And the people we love and who do the work are suffering. And the people we love who use those benefits or serve our country are suffering. And that's going to hurt. I mean, when you talk about cutting family programs, you're cutting things. One of the most ridiculous things, before I let you go, for a brief moment, they modified the contract for our service members based in Kuwait at the air base there to take away all the morale programs they had. They took away anything that wasn't lethality. I'm sorry, you're deployed in the most boring country in the world and you can't play video games. It's just the ridiculousness of the kind of cuts they're doing show that none of the assholes doing it have ever served a day. I mean, that's the thing. In the end, Doge and all these guys, Hegseth could talk all he wanted about a service, but he and his peers served for a very short time. They never sat for hours and days and weeks and months away from home in a boring place with nothing to do. And the idea that we're supposed to be lethal all the time is not how the human brain works. So cutting these benefits and cutting these support networks is going to damage morale and damage people's willingness to keep serving. And we're going to pay a price for a long time. So I could go on. There's a lot to talk about. A couple plugs back. Remind you again about our amazing town hall with Pete Buttigieg. That's VoteVets Town Hall, May 13th in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. You can learn more at votevets.org/townhall. You can sign up. Get it now. Sign up now before it's too late. I think it's going to fill up. So make sure you sign up. It's all free, of course, but we'd love to see you there. I will be there myself. So if I can see you guys in the streets outside, I'd be looking forward to that. I will be hanging out. But definitely sign up now. Learn more there at the VoteVets Town Hall with Pete Buttigieg. The biggest thing, my big ask for you guys is we're trying to grow this YouTube network. I see a lot of you are on Facebook. I appreciate you. So many on Twitter and everywhere else. If you could surf on over to YouTube, click that subscribe button so we get those numbers up so more people see the show, see our content. We've got some great ads coming out. We've got some great new stuff coming out, a lot of announcements. It's just never a dull moment right now. We as veterans find ourselves in the middle of all this in a lot of ways, and we at Vote Vets are trying to tell that story effectively so you know what's going on, as well as support key candidates and policies that are going forward. So surf on over, hit that. And then finally, of course, votevets.org, where we can find all the information about what we do. There's 2 key buttons, as I always remind you every week. Learn, you can get take action, join that take action button. You can join us. There's a lot going on. We are taking action, like say town halls in Iowa. We'd love to have you there. Also, next to that one is that donate button, because if we didn't do this, it would be tough. And look, you guys, you're hearing the rumors, right? A lot of nonprofits, a lot of PACs, a lot of candidates, just people are holding their money right now. We survive able to do this business because the generosity of you guys who support us. So even a little bit of money helps us a lot to do this work that we do. So we appreciate you doing that and joining us. So again, if you got a little bit of money to forward, we'd really appreciate you donating to Vote Vets when you can. In the meantime, we are here every Friday for online Vote Vets at 1 o'clock every Friday Eastern time. I'd love to keep having you come back and visit us. We appreciate you guys so much. And without further ado, I will let you guys go. As you can see, a lot going on in the service world, in the vets world, in the national security world. We'll try to keep you up to date. In the meantime, stay in the fight, folks. Don't lose hope. Our power works when we band together. We use our voices as one. They do listen. Hence, Mike Waltz looking for a new job. We can keep doing that together. We need you to be a part of it. So until the next time, stay safe out there. Keep up the fight. I'm Fred Wellman. Thanks for being here.